Welcome to the TheDPost Sports Chat. I'm Drew Rubenstein here with Justin Jackson, and the WVU men's basketball team dropped its second straight game of the season to Texas on Monday night, Justin, and lost in convincing fashion to Texas. The Longhorns dominated almost the entire game, and I think the one thing that stuck out to me, the one thing that was kind of reinforced was that WVU, if its shots aren't falling, they're just not going to maybe be able to beat elite level teams in the Big 12 this season because they don't do the other things like rebounding and defense well enough. Is that a fair assessment? Would you agree?
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty fair assessment. I mean, you look at what Texas did, and Texas is kind of built like some of the old Big East teams that West Virginia is used to going up against. Cameron Ridley, Prince Ebay, Connor Lambert, very big, very physical teams. Even the guards are very strong, very physical. Javon Felix is kind of a hefty built point guard. So, they were built on strength and rebounding and toughness, and West Virginia couldn't match up, and, they shot 4 of 25 from three-point range, and when the shots aren't going in, West Virginia isn't a team that's going to grab offensive rebounds, and they're not going to get a lot of stops, and they're not going to play that physical, tough defense that they were used to known to play. And so it's tough for them to match up when they're not making the shots. 4 of 25, that'll about get you beat.
Was it just one of those nights where the shots weren't falling, or is there a theme here or a more reason of concern? Because Aaron Harris specifically has gone through quite a slump over the last 3 or 4 games. Was Texas doing something in particular, or was it just one of those nights where things weren't going their way?
I think it's just more one of those nights for West Virginia because, West Virginia, even though they haven't beaten a top 25 ranked team, or they haven't, beaten a good program yet this season. They have shot the ball well against good competition. They shot the ball very well against Wisconsin. They shot the ball pretty well against Gonzaga, and those are 2 pretty good teams. They just, they couldn't come up with the win on the defensive end of the game, and that was kind of the same thing that happened against Texas. They just didn't have anybody that could match up defensively and couldn't stop Texas. They're going to have that kind of problem throughout the rest of the Big 12 season. You look at the game coming up this Saturday. Kansas State is a little bit differently, not as quite as offensively minded as some of the other Big 12 teams, but certainly a team like a Baylor, a team like an Oklahoma State that they'll face again. Kansas, 2 more games. These teams are very good offensively, and can get at you on the defensive end as well, and it's going to be tough for West Virginia to match up against some of these other teams in the league.
You mentioned Kansas State. That's WVU's opponent on Saturday. You're getting ready to head out to Manhattan, Kansas, and kind of looking at least the statistics on paper, Kansas State seems to almost look like an old Bob Huggins or WVU team in terms of disciplined defense and not letting teams get good shots. Is that kind of their game? What are the challenges the Wildcats present?
Yeah, Kansas State is that's been their moniker really since Huggins took over there in 2006, and of course he moved on to WVU, and came Frank Martin, who was a Huggins assistant, and then of course, Martin 2 years ago went to South Carolina, and now Bruce Weber has moved in, and he's kind of kept that same moniker, where the fact that, even though offenses this year are kind of skyrocketing points per game and free throws going up, Kansas State has kind of stayed steady defensively. They're not giving up a lot of points per game. They're only giving up like 60 points per game. Teams are not shooting the ball well against them. They don't give up a lot of threes. They've given up the least amount of threes in the Big 12. So, it's not only hard to get a good shot, it's hard to get an open shot against Kansas State. And then they come back offensively, and they like to take their time on offense. They don't score a lot. That's because they're kind of methodical. They like to run the shot clock down low, try to look for one shot, and then if maybe get an offensive rebound and take another 30 seconds off the clock. So that's what K-State will kind of do. West Virginia will have to get the shots. They'll have to make shots when they get shots, and you hope you can kind of hang in there defensively enough to make it close at the end.
Mentality-wise, where do you sense this team is? It's a team that had gone on the road, won its first 2 in league play against TCU and Texas Tech, comes back home, plays Oklahoma State till the final whistle, and then just gets beat in a fashion that it hadn't lost to Texas. So is this team in a fragile state at this point, or what was the sense you got of the Mountaineers after Monday's game?
Well, their 2 worst losses of the year, Missouri and then obviously Texas. Against Missouri they were down 25 and they made a little run to come back in that game, and Texas was beating them by 21 before they kind of made a little 14-5 run there at the end of the game. And both instances they came back and played pretty well the next game, and so I think if nothing else, this team does a good job of rebounding and getting over a tough setback and then focusing itself on the next game. And when you have a lot of young guys, I think it's a little bit easier to do that, to just kind of forget it was a bad game and let's move on. And then I think this team kind of has that mentality where it can get over a tough loss or get over a bad situation and just move on to the next game. And I think this team has shown that in the past, and that's kind of the mentality right now, I think.
And that'll be a big key. 3 of the next 4 are on the road,
Yeah.
so we'll kind of learn just where this team is. But Justin, thanks again for your time, and
Yeah.
please continue to check TheDPost.com for the latest on the Mountaineers. Thanks for watching today.